Welcome to another episode of the Impossible Life Podcast. I'm your co-host, Nick Surface, and I'm looking across at a man whose words are so powerful, he recently saved a man from drowning at the beach from the comfort of his couch. That's right, friends, the former Navy SEAL, Garrett Unkelbach, a man who wants to live in your head rent-free and just might save your life.
I wouldn't say I want to live in people's
Bro,
heads.
you 100% do. You once said that to me, and I never forgot it because I was like, forget that guy. I'm not letting him do that. But this is the most true intro I've ever given.
I mean, hey, if you want to make some space for me in your head, it's probably not a bad thing.
See, exactly. I'm glad the truth has prevailed here. So we have a very good friend named Norm who is very muscular and not known for his swimming ability, and decided that in a part of his morning routine when he was visiting a beach in Florida was that he was just going to go out there deeper and deeper, just saying rock because that's how Norm starts his day. And we love Norm. Well, Norm also breathes.
Norm was an inanimate object, he'd be a cannonball.
That is 100%. He is a rock solid. Every time I give him a hug, I can barely put my arms around him. And I'm 6'2", and my wingspan's at least 6'2". So that tells you how round Norm is. And it's not fat. It's all solid muscle. So this is not an object that's made to swim or float. This is an object that's made to sink. And Norm walked himself out in the water and kept saying rock kazak and getting deeper and deeper until, whoop, stepped off a ledge and realized there was a strong undercurrent. Man, if only someone had put some flags up that said, don't swim here, it's unsafe. Oh, yeah, they did. He sailed right past that, and he tells this story. He literally goes, and this killed me personally because of how much I like to give Garrett a hard time. He goes, Garrett, you saved my life. And I'm like, what? What do you mean he saved your life? He was literally in Texas. You're in Florida on a beach. He's like, I was panicking because I realized I might drown. Like, he literally almost died. We're so grateful that Norm's alive. We love Norm. And he goes, I was panicking, and I just thought to myself, what would Garrett do right now? And he said he'd have equanimity. So he calmed down and managed to swim himself back to shore and save his own life, and credits you with it. And I'm just like, dude, like the guy wasn't even there, but praise God. I'm just glad Norm's alive, and it gave me an intro. And I just think it's amazing that you have been credited for saving a life from 1,500 miles away. That's got to be a unique one.
Just here to play my part.
Well, hey, praise God that you did. Anyways, so today's episode, man. If you have a dream, if you have a vision for your life, if you want to accomplish something great, man, this is an episode. Listen to every single second of this and go back. Garrett is living this, and so that's inspired a lot of what we're doing. But for you people that are out there that want to have a vision or dream, you're going to be reality challengers. You're going to be people that are going to have to see something that's not existing right now and truly go, okay, I believe this is possible. I'm going to bring it into reality. And so we're going to walk you through the steps that really I would call it like the dream loop of fulfilling the dreams that God's put in your heart. And we're going to get into how to tell if it's you or God. We're going to get into the difficulties, the challenges, what you need to remember. We're going to give you some practical examples. It's going to be one of those things I hope you come out and you're like, let's go make big things happen, because this is the impossible life, not the mediocre life. And that's what I'm saying. That is very much a statement of intent. So when you think of dreams, nobody thinks of anything more famous speech than our man Martin Luther King Jr., who gave one of the greatest speeches ever, delivered on August 28th, 1963. I mean, the I Have a Dream speech is one of the most famous speeches. I was actually reading it in preparation for this. It is phenomenal, like so phenomenal.
There's a lot of protections around that speech, like his foundation that owns all of his material, right? Like it's difficult on the internet just to find a full copy of the speech.
Huh. I did not know that. I've been to his museum in Atlanta, but I didn't know that.
Anyways, go on. That's a little tidbit for you.
Little side note. But yeah, I mean, so he gives this speech. Think about this. In August of 1963, right? In July of 1964, the Civil Rights Act of 1964 outlaws segregation. Man, your dream's coming true. Well, unfortunately, on April 4th of 1968, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. was shot and killed. Now, and it's not as, the reason I'm giving this, because understand this story. Those are all simple historical facts. The actual process of, hey, we've been segregated for hundreds of years, and now we're making segregation illegal, doesn't change the thoughts of people. It's not like Martin Luther King Jr., once it got to July of 64, was like, great, that came true. Put my feet up, stop giving speeches, civil rights work is over, everybody's equal, we did it. That's how we think. We want the finish line, right? Like we want the part where we got the dream and it came true, and now we're everything's idealized and perfect. This is such a human condition. And the reason I'm telling Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s story isn't to say like, oh, what a tragic ending and that's what's going to happen to you. It's to say like, look how much work constantly has to be done. The speech that he gave, what's so powerful about that speech is so many things. He links back to like hundreds of years ago. He talks about, like, he says 50 years ago. So he says 100 years ago. This is how he starts the speech. A great American in whose symbolic shadow we stand today signed the Emancipation Proclamation. He basically says, look, you set black people free years ago, but we're still not free. He tells a story of like, look, this is a long time coming. And the reason I'm using that as the example, and then he talks about, he's like 100 years later, the life of the Negro is still sadly crippled by the manacles of segregation and the chains of discrimination. He's talking about how it's like, it's not yet. Just because you sign this thing into place doesn't mean it's actually happened. And he's still doing work. And guess what? Whenever they had the Civil Rights Act of 1964, he still had to do work. There's people today who are still doing work. And so it's this thought process of like, this is what you have to be prepared for on your dream. And so
he had a dream, and the dream came true, but at the same time, it's still trying to come true.
And that's exactly the point. And I believe that that's by design. There's
something that feels so like I actually had a dream last night that I remember. And I won't talk about it. I had a dream last night that I remember that's going to be meaningful to me. But there's this, one of the things about dreams that I think people are so sucked into that they love about the dream is that the dream is void of something that we have to deal with every day.
Right.
It's called reality.
Yeah.
Right. In the dream world, you don't have to deal with reality. You don't have to face it. And so I think, God allows dreams to be that way for a certain reason, right? Because it's an idea. It's something that's going to pull you in a certain direction. And the greatness that's in that dream can become a greatness that's in reality. But it's a long journey from dream to reality. And the reality will never feel exactly like the dream does.
100%. And God's so good at there's a lot of wisdom in saying, hey, let's give you the dream, but not tell you the price. Because if you said this yesterday, it might have been, if God showed you the price of everything, a lot of people would just be like, yeah,
people always want the plan.
Right.
And, I can tell you when I was 18 years old, I would have liked to have known what God's plan was. But if he had shown me the plan, I might not have bought in.
Right. Yeah, exactly right.
But I'm here today, and what God wants for us isn't that we would love the plan, but that we would love the planner.
Right.
Right. And trust the planner, don't trust the plan.
Yeah, and that's going to be key. We're going to come back to that. So we're going to dive into these three phases of just the dream loop of challenging reality. But one of the things I was thinking about, Jimmy, you said you had a dream last night. I don't know at what age it is. Like, one of my core values is dream, because I never want to be a person that just kind of goes like, well, this is it. Like, that's part of me just committing myself to constantly thinking bigger and to thinking of impact. And I wonder at what stage people really start going like, oh, that was just a kid thing, and they stop dreaming. Because the people that really change society as we know it, they're dreaming all throughout.
Much of that is dependent upon your personal choice.
Yeah.
The same way that like you get old when, not by age, you get old when you stop growing and developing.
Yeah. There's a Norman Vincent Peale.
When a tree stops producing fruit, it's dying.
Yeah. Yeah. And Norman Vincent Peale gives my favorite quote of what old is. He said, you only become old when you lose your enthusiasm for life.
Yeah.
And I love that, because it's like, well, what age is that? Whenever you decide.
You know what? I might, turn 90 and decide I'm learning to play the violin.
That's what I'm talking about. That's how I'm going to roll. I'm literally never going to, I'm never going to lose my enthusiasm for life.
That's right.
It's a decision. Okay, so let's get into this, G. So we're talking about this. The very first step is...
Well, before you launch into the steps, I just want to say one more thing. There was a lesson that they taught hard in the SEAL teams that I think is a good parallel or a good setup for what we're about to get into today. And they would say to us, never rush to your death. And this was related to CQC, close quarters clearance, where they're training us in how to clear a target.
Yeah.
And the dream scenario in CQC is we go in, rescue the hostage, and shoot all the bad guys in the face, and none of us get hurt.
I did that in Call of Duty, dude. I know what you're talking about.
No, in Call of Duty, you died many, many times because we all played Call of Duty.
Yeah, and I rushed to my death every time.
Exactly.
Because I had no fear.
The definition of Call of Duty, rush to your death.
Yeah.
And they would teach us over and over, never rush to your death, because it's so easy to just want to turn the next corner.
Yeah.
Like it's going to be right there. We're going to find the hostage. It's going to be, touchdown. We're going to win. But if you run around that corner before you're ready, that's how you get shot in the face instead of the enemy getting shot in the face. And so they taught us to you have to move as fast as possible, but at the same time, You run the clock. Don't let the clock run you. And so it's this balance, and it's a difficult balance. It's a wrestling. It's a battle between having to go as fast as you can. It's the thought process of seize the opportunity of the lifetime within the lifetime of the opportunity. Yep. The lifetime of the opportunity for us in close quarters clearance, it's a short one. But just remember, you run the clock. Don't let the clock run you. And so there's all this work that has to be done, the preparation, and sometimes really like the never rush to your death, what all the peace or the pause that it would give me is I would sprint to the corner, and when the hallway's clear, and literally I would take a half-second pause or a 1 second pause before I took that corner. Not for the sake of wasting time, but to reset the tempo that I'm running the clock. The clock's not running me.
Yeah.
Man. And so I say that to say, as that parallels what we're about to go through here, a lot of people want to rush to the dream. How do I get to the dream as fast as possible? And if you do that, if you rush to the dream as fast as you can, you're going to turn the corner unprepared. It's much like trying to accomplish your dreams, trying to have business success, trying to have a dream scenario for your family. It's much like trying to get a plane to fly. And when they first used to launch planes, one of the things that would help them is like altitude. Right? If we push this thing off of a cliff, we got lots of room for the glide ratio to pick up.
Yeah.
Don't be trying to rush your business. Don't be trying to rush your life, rush your family off the edge of the cliff. You better make sure that you got a good set of wings on that plane, because when you finally do go over the edge of the cliff and that time's coming, you're either going to fly or you're going to fall.
Yeah.
So just a parallel thought I want to give to all of this is never rush to your death, and understand that the dream scenario is flying. Right? I want the people who listen to this podcast, I want for my own life that my plane would fly.
Yeah.
But understand that there's a lot of work that has to be done, and don't blindly rush towards the edge of the cliff.
Yeah, that's so good, G. And there's so many things that you could say are difficult about that, but over and over again in society today, in a society of convenience where you can have everything you want at the press of a button, it flies in the face of being of real price pain. And that's that. I mean, there's growth hackers. There's all sorts. There's hackers for everything. Like, oh, you want a great body.
4 hour work week.
Yeah, the 4 hour work week. 4 hour body.
Loved Tim Ferriss. Not knocking that. There's a lot of great wisdom in that book.
Right, there is 100%. But
he's giving people what they want.
Well, he is, because I've read that book, and what happens is he went through years and years before he then was able to kind of go, okay, now I'm going to get down to 4 hours. And everybody wants to go like, well, how do I just go straight to 4 hours and make like multiple six figures? Yeah, you don't. It's just as simple as that. You don't. There's a price to be paid.
Oh, I'll just start working for 4 hours and
I'll just make a widget. No, you're not going to make a widget. You're not going to like figure out the system. There's a price to be paid. Yeah. And the sooner you get to that, like I always say on this podcast, the 100% mission success guarantee was an unlock in my life, because I realized that what made Navy SEALs special was that they just said, I'm just going to keep doing things right. Well, how long? Forever, until we get
yeah.
And that kind of, for whatever reason, that released me, because it's like, so I just got to keep going. Yeah, I can do that. I can keep going. And that's what I've done. And it's like, guess what? It's working out all right for me right now. So like, it's that thought process of just keep going forever. Because like you said on our previous podcast, you're going to die for something. And so you can either just keep going in 1,400 different directions and die, or you can just be like, well, here's the direction I'm going, and I'm going to keep going. And that's endurance.
So now let's jump in.
Okay. I'm glad you said that, Garrett. Yeah. You're handling the transitions today? Good job.
No, you got it.
Okay. So the very first step, obviously, is to have vision, to have the dream. And here's something to note, because you can pluck dreams out of the sky, but the size of your vision or dream will determine the time frame, right? I remember so many times when I'm young, I'm like, man, I'm going to be a billionaire. Like my band is going to be like the biggest band in the world. Like when you're a kid, you dream things up in a second. Like my daughter, she wants to be the coach of everything. And I'm like, babe, in order to be the coach, you have to pay a price for a long time. Like she wants to jump straight to being able to teach other people. I'm like, well, you got to actually pay the repetition price to know how to do it yourself, or to learn before you can then go teach other people. And that's understandable. She's 12. But a lot of people don't get out of that. It's kind of like the fastest way. I'm going to take a certificate course online, and now I'm going to be X. Maybe, but like you're probably not going to be a successful X.
We live in the age of Instagram, where you have 22-year-old coaches who are coaching other coaches on how to be coaches.
Right. Or like, let me tell you how to do a successful business. Hey, what businesses have you started? Oh, I've got a coaching business. Isn't that the one I'm paying you for now? Yeah. Oh, so you've never actually started a business? Well, yeah. Right. And you're right. That is Instagram is not reality. We'll just say that. But one of the things that's in here, so people struggle with this question. And I want to answer this one straight away, G. So many people struggle whether it's them or God, right? Because people will have dreams, they'll have desires, they'll have passions, and then they hear scriptures like the heart is wicked and deceitful above all things. Who can know it, right? Like, and it's like, man, and that's Jeremiah 17. That's really tough scripture to come to grips with when you have a Christian person saying, hey, your heart's wicked and evil.
And Ezekiel 36, God says, I'll give you a new heart.
Right. And here's the other thing. So Psalms 139.
And in Ezekiel 36, that's like an entire paragraph of Ezekiel writing on like, this is the way that God is. That's what I said, there's a paraphrase of an entire chapter of him writing about like, this is how God will work with you. This is the way that God fixes man. This is the way that God deals with you. God says, I'll give you a new heart.
Right. And that transformation process is massive. So let's answer that question straight away, because what we don't want people playing small. We don't want people afraid to pursue dreams.
That's right.
We don't want people to be like, well, this might not be God, so I'm going to sit here and wait till I know that it is. I'm telling you, you won't. Like Moses got the burning bush and God told him what was happening and he still didn't want to go. He asked him 5 times to let him out of it. So let's just be honest about who we are in humanity and know you're not going to have certainty. You're going to have to step out. And part of stepping out is like, is this God? Is this me? Well, let's dive into that. One of my favorite scriptures I think gets overlooked is Psalms 139:13. It says, for you created my inmost being. You knit me together in my mother's womb. And then verse 14 is just wonderful, so I'm just going to share it as well. It says, I praise you because I'm fearfully and wonderfully made. Your works are wonderful. I know that full well. And he's referring to the own creation of himself whenever he's writing that. The interesting thing about that inmost being, that it's written in Hebrew. It comes out in English.
Read it one more time.
Yeah, all right. It says, for you created my inmost being. You knit me together in my mother's womb. I praise you because I am fearfully and wonderfully made. Your works are wonderful. I know that full well. David sees that he's wonderful, not because like, oh, look at me, aren't I great? But because he sees the Creator's fingerprints on his life. And that inmost being part, if you look it up in the Hebrew, it means kidneys, which is, it can also be used for kidneys or innermost parts, which is weird for us.
Yeah.
But like in Hebrew culture, the kidneys and the heart were like the seat of the most deepest desires that you have. It was literally like the things that you want at the core of your being. And what he's saying here is, guess who put that together? God. And the way I describe it is God puts he's a lot better than we are, right? Like he knows what he's doing. And he puts what I call like a magnet in you. There's going to be certain things that you're going to come across in your life that you're going to be attracted to for reasons that you can't explain. And I'm not talking about the stuff we know we shouldn't, like, oh, I really like looking at chicks all the time. I'm talking about like desires to do things. There's going to be certain things that you find really interesting, certain people that for whatever reason you're just drawn to them. That to me is God's inmost being formed in you, that there's something that you're not always sure about, but you're attracted to it. And the story I always tell about this is the one with you and Steve Weatherford. You talked about how you guys saw Pastor Keith on the strike force, and you guys both went and got weights and like decided to start lifting. He became an NFL player. You became a Navy SEAL. Both very physical things. I saw that and was like, man, those guys are crazy. I wonder if this chick likes me. Why? Because like and if you look, I know you value intellect, but you also value physicality as well. Yeah. I value intellect way more than physicality personally, even though I love sports and I am physical.
I like the Plato mentality.
Yeah.
I have a wise idea and you can argue with me and also I will flex on you.
Right. But I'm saying that to say at our young ages, we didn't know that. But to me, that's a picture. And also our hearts are a little bit more pure at that age, because at a young age, you don't have as many things pulling on you. So the point I'm making is that God has put these things in you. Now, the challenge becomes all these different selfish desires and different, insecurities and wounds that happen as you grow up that can make it really cloudy to go like, man, I don't know if I'm pursuing this and it's a God thing or if I'm pursuing this and it's a me thing. And one of the things you always talk about, G, is like you have to take what's in your heart and put it on the altar and to truly give it to God.
Coming back to that Psalms 139 scripture with this, that God knows my inmost being. Well, let me just give some extra thought there. You go back to that time in history talking about the heart and the kidneys. People didn't really know that much about the heart and the kidneys back then.
Right.
We had not gone through the era of human biology and human understanding. And there's still things about the human biology today that we're just learning about.
Yeah.
It's like Pastor Josh just preached about the interstitium, like the new organ. And there's stuff about the human body that we still don't understand. I say that to say, and way more so back then. But there are things here's what I know, and this is something that you have to understand for God's plan for your life. For me, for Nick, for everyone listening, but what you've got to understand about your identity is that God knows you better than you know yourself.
Yep.
And so just like God knew more about the heart and the kidney than they did back then, they just knew what they knew. the same way for Garrett in my own life. There's things that I know about me that's like, man, here's what I know. But God knows me even better than I know myself. The good and the bad.
Yes. Yep.
And so there's going to be things in my life where maybe like I didn't think I should have to burn this out of me or cut this off of me, where God says, no, that's terrible and I don't want that in you anymore. And in the same way, there's also going to be things in my life where God says, like, I see more in you than you see in yourself.
Yeah.
And I'm going to put you in a position, I'm going to put you in a place to use you in the way that I want to use you for the way that I made you. And so I'd say all of that to say, what goes right along with the dream is just this understanding. This is what you've got to have in your life, is a great understanding that God has a plan for your life.
Yeah.
And if God puts this dream in my heart and I have a heart for God, then I'm going to use this dream to the fullest. And I don't know all the details of the plan. Gosh, I don't even know myself that well.
Yeah.
I don't even know myself as well as God knows me. So really what God wants most is that I would trust him, that I would trust the planner, that I would trust the creator, that I would trust the maker, and that I would follow him. And all I have to do is play my part.
Yeah. And that's so good, man. It's that element, what's interesting about the Hebrew instructions for whenever they would sacrifice an animal is God instructed them to take the insides, part of that being the kidneys and the heart and the entrails, and burn it on the altar.
Yeah.
And so like what they were doing is they were literally putting their innermost desires, represented in these animals, on the altar and burning it up.
Yeah.
And so what that means for us practically is, the best I've ever heard this description is John Bevere. This is a regular thing. This is not like a one-time fix. Like, I took my car to the shop and they fixed it and it's done now. This is like, I need to do this daily, of just getting before God and truly, look, there's things we all want. You want really badly to have, and things that are good. I want to have a great marriage. I want my kids to be this way. I really want my business to grow. I want to insert whatever good thing that you think and that you think is good. And you're like, yeah, well, of course God's going to want this. And there's this place of getting before God where you're called putting it in neutral, where it's like, man, I really want this. And to be able to say, you know what, Lord, but if it absolutely falls apart and fails completely, yet I'll still trust you because I know you're good. And when you can get to the place that regardless of whether it goes the way you would want it to or it doesn't, that you're like, Lord, I'll trust you and I'll love you and I will trust that that's your plan, then you're in neutral. And I don't know how to describe it. There's like a feeling of release whenever you do this, of really knowing like, okay, God, I've given it over to you. And it's not like me hoping you'll bless my plans, but more, I want to bless your plans. AKA, I want to get myself, just all I want is what you want.
Right.
And that is being in neutral. And when you have that, then you can trust the dreams in your
That's
heart.
right.
And that's God giving you a new heart. I mean, I'll just be honest. I'm not going to share what it was, but like, I pray, I pray in my sauna. I'll pray in the Holy Spirit and just sit in there and have time with God and meditate. And I have been surprised at some of the things that have popped up that I'm like, this can't be a word from God, because that sounds like way too good. And that just very specific things about my life where I'm like, okay, now I'm ready to do X. And it's because it's like, it's always an issue of heart. If you put your heart before God, it says that he delights in prospering his people. It's what he's always wanted is the heart issue. So if you're out there and you're going like, how do I know if this is me or God? Just get before and say, you know what, Lord, whether it's me or this may be you, this may not be you, I'm just going to give it to you anyways. And I'm just going to say, hey, if it fails or if it flies, yet are you faithful? I'll serve you.
So 3 steps today about living the dream, about challenging reality, getting to where you want to go to in your life. The first part is you've got to have the dream. You've got to have the vision. And I would say that you've got to not be afraid of it.
Yeah.
Right. You've got to be willing to be all in on it. And when you can do that, when you believe that God has a plan and you have this neutral, like Nick is talking about, when you have this clarity of like, this is the dream that God's given me and I'm willing to go all in on it.
Yeah. So good.
Doesn't mean you have all the details. Doesn't mean you have certainty or a surety that it's going to succeed. Just like Joseph did, he just said, you know what, this is my dream.
Yeah. So next step, Jesus, obviously we go out and we slay giants and we have a montage, right? And then like we become Rocky.
Rocky scene.
Yeah, obviously. Okay. Oh no. Actually, embrace reality. Wait, what? Embrace reality.
The next step is about embracing reality. You can't overcome reality until you embrace it, right? And just like I made the analogy earlier of, like, hey, let's get your plane to fly. That's the dream. Like everybody wants to live the dream. But if you don't embrace the realities of flying, of here's what it's actually going to take, I've got to have the understandings of lift, thrust, weight, and drag. I've got to know all the parts of flying. If you just be like, man, if I just want it bad enough and I throw some fairy dust on there and stick my arms out, I'm going to fly.
Right.
You will die.
Yeah.
That's what's going to happen to your dream. And that's why embrace reality is such a big piece. Embrace reality is really looking at the harshness of what it's going to take, right? Everyone wants to stand on the top of mountains very few people want to, get up at 3 a.m. and hike for 18 hours against altitude and rocks and everything else that it takes to get up to the top of the mountain.
Yeah.
It's way harder. It's way more painful. And I would bet you, just referencing our Mount Massive climb, if some of those guys had knew how bad it was going to be, some of the people on the journey would not have come.
Yeah. Our first
we sold them the mountain peak.
We really did. I bought it as well. I had never had altitude sickness until, I'll still say that was probably one of the worst feelings I've ever had as far as over a prolonged period. I felt like I was hungover and with COVID for
the
9
new
hours.
challenge that introduced I think for a lot of you, like, it's one thing to do like difficult things to do, or even do a marathon or do a 100-mile race. But what that introduced up there is there's no one's coming to get me up here.
That's exactly right.
I couldn't. If I lay down, I'm just going to die up here.
Yep. I had that thought very clearly because we attempted to climb Mount Massive, which is the third highest peak in the lower 48 states.
We did come back and finish it.
We did. The first time we ran out of time, and I think that was God's blessing because we were also in a blizzard. Literally, we had 60-mile-per-hour winds because we went late in the season. And we stopped off and tried to tell the guards, like, hey, we're going to climb this mountain. They're like, yeah, whatever. Well, we didn't see another soul. And there was definitely, I definitely had a part where there was 7 of us that were going. And I realized, I said, if somebody falls out here, we're the rescue team. And like, no one's coming for us. And like, we were all jacked up. Multiple guys said on that trip, I think almost every guy said it was the hardest thing they'd ever done in their life because you got terrible altitude sickness. You're freezing. There's wind whipping you in the face, and just a ton of different things.
Those were good moments.
They were great moments. I loved that. I remember I had a worship song on loop in my head for 6 hours straight, just the chorus, and all I did was put one foot in front of another. It was amazing.
So that's some of what the reality can look like. Your dream is like, oh, it's going to be so great. We're going to take the picture at the top of the mountain. But the dream is this is going to be one of the most brutal things I'll ever have to deal with.
Right. And you don't know. And
in your life, it's not an 18-hour mountain climb. In your life, it's 10 years. In your life, it's 20 years.
Yeah, and you don't have like what we could do. So the challenge for embracing reality is to see it clearly and to gather knowledge. On our mountain climb, we could Google stuff. We knew about altitude sickness. We could gather some pills, although Garrett very much kept that quiet and did not say that about altitude sickness.
I just don't put too much weight on it.
Yeah, and I appreciate that because I got the joy of experiencing it rather suddenly when I got out of the car and tried to walk up 5 flights of stairs and was coughing because I was so out of breath. But the point being, like, we could Google all that stuff, and there was pills and stuff. There's no Google for like, hey, how do I become a billionaire? And they go, oh, just do this. Or how do I become the greatest husband in the world? You know what you're going to get? 4 million results, and like 3,999,000 of them are going to be terrible advice. And you got to figure it out.
Most people are looking for the elevator, but there is no elevator for your destiny.
Right.
Like you're going to have to climb your way there.
That's exactly right. And so
embrace reality, like where I look at dreams in motion in my own life that are going well, where I look at dreams in motion in my own life that haven't gone well, where I look at dreams in motion around me, right? Like things I've been a part of, things I've observed, where I see people struggling and like, why is it, I have this thought for myself of like, man, I never want to be that person.
Right.
And that person is the scene. This is, late 2015, Hillary Clinton on the news saying,
right.
Why am I not 20 points ahead?
Yeah.
Right. She was, regardless of politics, she had formed her own bubble of delusion. She was not in touch with reality.
Correct.
As much of a strange character in history as Donald Trump was and still is, she had not looked at reality and said, like, man, like people actually believe in this guy.
Right.
And she was just, she was living in a reality where he's just, the guy from The Apprentice, some real estate guy, the author of The Art of the Deal. Why would anyone want this person to be president? That's the reality that she was living in. And she's just on TV ranting and raving and, spewing her delusion.
Yeah.
She had not embraced reality. If she had embraced reality, she might have been able to beat him. She's like, okay, I'm actually going to have to like go toe to toe with this guy.
Yeah.
And that's a character for me where I've said, I never want to be this person who's just standing there yelling like, why am I not winning more?
Yeah.
Why aren't more people following me? Why aren't my dreams coming true? I never want to be that person. And that is a person who has avoided reality. Why would you avoid reality? It's very painful. Right? When you embrace reality, it will humble you.
Yeah.
When you embrace reality, it will give you a bill of goods that's going to be required for your dream that's asking you to give like all the most valuable things that you have. You want this, it's going to take all of your time. You want this, you're going to give up a lot of pleasure and comfort. You're going to sacrifice all of these things. And so many people, they'll just say like, man, I liked my dream better when it was just a dream.
Yeah.
And the truth is, like, if you really want this and if this is a God dream for you, you've got to have the heart like Abraham did. God, whatever you ask, whatever you demand of me, that's what I'm willing to do. Because, I did like the dream. I'm sure Abraham was like pumped up. If Abraham if God's promise to Abraham had been about, money and an outcome, Abraham would be like checking his fidelity account every single day. Like, man, like I'm going to be so rich. I'm going to have all of this. When God sold Abraham the dream, like you're going to go to this place, I'll make you the father of many nations. Man, that sounds awesome. Stand by for 20 years of just waiting around, and I'm going to test you and I'm going to make sure that you grow. Then I'm going to give you the dream, ask you to sacrifice it again. Like I'm just going to test you over and over again. God didn't say, Abraham, come follow me. I'm going to test you till the end of your life.
Right.
He said, hey, I'm going to do all these great things in you. The test is what developed him. And so this embrace reality understanding is you've got to realize like God gave you a dream and God has a great plan for your life, but at the same time, it's going to cost you a lot. And if you get delusional in that, or you start being like the Israelites were in Egypt or in the desert, where they're 2 weeks into the desert and they're saying, man, like Egypt was nice. Slavery was nice. Captivity was nice. Yeah, like they had good food and like I had a nice warm bed. It was 2 weeks into the desert when the Israelites started missing Egypt.
Yep.
And that's what can happen to us when we don't embrace reality. The promised land was in front of them and they had to go through the desert.
Yeah.
And the desert took longer for them because they never embraced reality.
Yeah. I mean, there's so much in there, G, but I mean, you touched on that of what will cause you to fail in avoiding reality about pride or fear, right? The pride of you see what you want to see, or the fear of like, man, who am I if I have to actually look at this? The fear of failure, the fear of inadequacy. I see this all the time. So for those of, I think one of the places we see this most is in business. And a lot of people I've realized from talking to people don't actually know what I do for work because I just say I'm in marketing. Like I'm a digital marketer.
That is one of those things like, I'm in marketing.
Yeah. And it's like, well, that could mean a million things. So I'm in digital marketing. I'm a growth marketer. I specialize in, if you sell things particularly.
It's like saying like, I'm in technology.
Yeah. Oh, cool. So what, can you make my app? No,
like
man.
Cars are technology.
Right.
Like everything is technology.
Right. So what I do is if you sell things online, like you have an online store and you sell direct to consumers, I work with those companies a lot. And this could be selling anything from shoes to jewelry to, tickets to a concert to, so many different things. And I've worked with a lot of companies because I'm a consultant. What they'll do is they'll say, hey, here's what I have. I want to sell this much amount. And then, tell me what I need to spend. That's like a very common problem for me. So I put together a digital media plan, say, okay, here's the channels we're going to use. Here's how much we're going to spend. Here's the assumptions we're making based on this data. And I build models for people to be able to accomplish their income for their e-commerce business. And what I've realized a lot happens in this, people fall in love with a product. And what will help you navigate better is to have an understanding of principles. Well, here's the challenge. Most people don't understand principles and they don't recognize patterns as well as they could. So they rush into these things with very quick timelines of like, man, I really, we can do it. And I'm like, no, you love this product, but you're completely ignoring a lot of really important things such as like market size, product, anyway, I could go into the principles of marketing, but I'm not going to because that would be a longer discussion. The point being, it usually starts with people falling in love with a product. And then what happens is they're like, we just got to put the marketing on it. And I'm like, hang on a minute. It's not just as simple as like, we're going to turn on an ad. I've had customers that a very specific customer that I will not name, I doubled their e-commerce in 1 year. Literally, they went from $500,000 to $1 million. Hurrah. Great success. Okay. They were very happy with me. You know what my reward was for doing that? Hey, can you make it double again plus 30%? Oh. And I was like, sure, we can do that.
Check out this hat that I have. I have multiple rabbits in here. Would you like me to pull them out?
No, but you can. But I said, what makes you think that you're going to be able to do that? Like, is there, because if you, what gives you that kind of growth is that you have
marketing guy. That's what you do,
that's
right?
What you do. Yeah,
you're just like walking gasoline for sales.
Yeah. You just basically, you pour the magic water and the plants grow. No, the plants grow the same way they grew before. If you want to grow more plants, you need more seed, more soil, and more resources.
I am water for healthy plants.
Exactly.
But I can't pour water on dirt and give you a tree.
And that was my question. I said, what has made you think, like, is there some new product line or some new market that you're opening up that makes you think that this should double again in a year and then some? And guess what? They didn't hit that target, and I knew it was coming. And
It's one of the biggest fails in startups,
Right.
is a lack of product market fit.
Right.
People get high on their own supply.
That's exactly
so
right.
to speak. They love their own product, but nobody else does.
Yeah, because they fail to understand things like paradigms and like story and messaging. Like if you're trying to, here, I'll give you a little free tip. If you're trying to do something that's never been done before and you can't explain it to somebody in one sentence, you better be prepared for a longer and more expensive road. Because if there's paradigms, aka you build a better mousetrap, you can make money quickly that way. If you're trying to really bring something that's never been done before, you need to be prepared that you're gonna have to explain it to a lot of people many, many times before it starts to become something they understand. So I'll sum it up as that, but business is a great example of it.
I want to finish just a couple quick pieces on embracing reality before we move on to
There's
the final piece.
for sure.
Right. Number one is you've got to get really, really clear on what your mission is.
Yeah,
right.
very good.
This is what allows you to embrace reality. Or I wouldn't say allows, but it gives you, helps you do it more.
Mm-hmm.
Like it makes you stronger in embracing reality. Because again, reality is going to be painful. And when you face pain, what do you need? You need a reason to move forward.
Yeah.
What if you don't have a great purpose, if you don't have a great why, you'll face the pain. You say, this isn't worth it. We've talked about this before where my friend, it just passed May 3rd, my friend Charlie Keating, who died with a smile on his face for what he believed in. Most people won't die the way that he did, but all of us will die. And the question is, when you die, are you going to have a smile on your face? Will you have believed in what you had given your life towards, right? Most of us won't die in an instant. We'll just die slowly.
Yeah.
But the same thing is true, right? You'll only die with a smile on your face if you gave your life. Many people die with regret because they gave their life to the wrong things.
Yeah.
But you will die with a smile on your face if you had given your life to the right things. And when you have a mission that you can say to yourself, like, man, this mission is worth giving my everything to, even if I fail. Elon Musk with SpaceX believed that he was likely to fail. He did not think he had a very high chance of success. He's talked about it. I don't remember what percentage he said, but so I don't want to misquote it, but it was a low percentage that he said, like, we only have this percentage chance of success in SpaceX. Like, he knew it was most likely that they would fail, but to him it was worthwhile.
Right.
Right. And so when you have something that is worthwhile in going after, you're okay with, man, we only have a 20% chance to succeed here, but let's do it anyways.
Yeah, that's so good. And that what you're talking about there with having that clarity of connection to your mission success is like you will have an urgency. That was one of the things that was in Martin Luther King Jr.'s speech is he said that the time is today. The urgency is now. What he was saying is like, look, this has been coming for a long time. We can't just be like, oh, it'll happen someday, or like, we'll just see, maybe the river will roll there. It's like, no, what I do today, I mean, it's what we say all the time. Today matters. Why? Because it's connected to a much bigger picture and plan of what's happening. Now, the challenges that people will face in this, besides, I mean, we're assuming that you can get the knowledge to see clearly.
Yeah.
I'll tell you, I work with multi-billion Fortune, 50 companies. I also work with very small startups. Guess what my level of data to work with to be able to see reality is with the Fortune, 50. I have so much data. I can look at, I'm not going to go, basically, I have a lot of data to know with a high degree of certainty, if we put this plan together, it will work. When you're like starting out with a small company, you have a small sample size that you paid to get yourself, aka we ran a few ads on social media, and this is what we saw. And then you're going to hedge your bets that you're going to go much bigger. So like we're assuming that you can gather knowledge. For you in your life, if you're trying to change, this might be, if you have an organization like a church and you're trying to really say like, hey, we're going this direction, this might be that you need to really start getting out and talking to people and trust that they're going to be honest with you. You might need to have like a surveys or you whatever it may be. If this is something in your personal life, hopefully you have a friend like I have and Garrett that will tell me no, I'm being serious. It's very bluntly.
It's a valuable thing if you'll embrace it.
That's exactly right.
As Jim Rohn said, feedback is the breakfast of champions.
Right.
If you're not a champion, it's a disgusting breakfast.
There you go. Well, hey, I eat that breakfast often, so I'd like to think I'm a champion. But the point being that we assume that. But then after that, so let's say that now you're not delusional, right? And you're going, okay, I'm not avoiding it. There's no pride here. I see what's really there. Now you got the fear of like, well, what if you're not enough? And so AK, your identity. I remember when I started my marketing consultancy 9 years ago, I launched out on my own, right? And I was, so suddenly I have to go get clients. I land a client, man, and I sold them a big package, and I was like, let's go. Could I have done that package? I'll be honest, I did I did some good sales work, and I bet on myself because I hadn't done it before, but I was like, I think I can. And I remember what surprised me when I did that was how much of a challenge it was to my identity, because at that point I was not serving God, did not have a solid identity. Because I remember I was like, if I fail,
exactly. You keep asking yourself, who am I?
Yep.
Who will I be if I fail? What do I do if I fail?
So when I would have a great day, I remember I would turn on a specific song from Jay-Z and I would like be in my car just like, yeah, I'm the man. And if I had a bad day, guess what? I was like, oh my gosh, I'm horrible. And G, you talk about this.
I'm not laughing at you, but I want people to hear that because I know there's people listening to this that are there. What a weak identity that your identity is based upon some hype from rap music.
Well, no, the rap music sort of was the outworking of the inward hype that I felt, because if I could sell, in this case, I think it was like my first $30,000 job, that was a big deal to me at that time. That was huge sums. Like I just said, yeah, I'll take the first $5,000 check now. And I'm going, oh my gosh, I think they're going to do this. And then they write it to me and I put it in my account. For me at this time, that was a huge deal. So now what does that mean, G? I'm the man. So then I put this song on and the lyrics were I Can Do Anything. It was from Jay-Z's 444 album. And it's like, I can do anything. And I'm like, yeah, I'm the man, right? Well, I wasn't the man, okay? I wasn't.
You are not the man.
I am not the man, but now I know the man. And that sounds cheesy, but it's actually true because now it's a different thing. But you being a guy who's had a solid identity, you talked about what will overcome this identity hurdle. And I want you to share with everybody.
It starts with this scripture, and forgive me for blanking on the reference because I didn't put this in our notes.
I'll find it.
But it's God gives grace to the humble, but resists the proud. And that's what you want in your life. Like if you want it to work out for you, is you need some grace.
Shocker. It's James 4:6, your favorite book of the Bible.
Yes, thank you. I don't know why I was blanking on the reference. But God gives grace to the humble and resists the proud. The worst place you can be in life, and this is a place that you can never recover from, that you can't get yourself out of, that you can't overcome, is God resisting you.
Man.
If God's resisting you, you will stay there until God lets you out.
Yep.
And God's not letting you out until you're humble. God gives grace to the humble. And here's what grace is. I screwed up. I didn't do the plan perfectly, but God's grace says, I see you and I'm with you.
Yeah.
And even though like your plane was supposed to crash, I'm going to give you a little bit of extra face wind and your plane's going to fly.
Yeah.
Right. That's what God's grace looks like. And it works in both ways. Like when you are humble, you'll also embrace reality better and have a way less likely chance of your plane not mechanically flying, right? Physically flying. But then it's also God saying, I'll be with you. I'll put the wind in your sails. Where this and what that does for you is in your identity. Here's what and I've talked about this before. But when you, like the underlying in all of this, the underlying for my identity is the belief, like I had dreams, yes, but I believed, and this is the infinite potential unlock I talked about all the time. My parents would tell me, God has a plan for your life. And when you really, really believe that, and I don't mean believe the way that weak Christianity is today, where they like believe in the idea of, but don't actually live it.
Yeah.
But when you put action to your belief and you believe that God has a plan for your life and you're willing to act on that, that's where I could do things like, I'm going to go into the SEAL teams and I believe I'm supposed to do this. But even if God doesn't give me grace in this, even if God doesn't get me through this program, I know that God still has a great plan for my life. It was not transactional with God where I said, God has a great plan for my life, and if I make it through the SEAL teams, I'll believe it was true.
Right.
That's not where truthfully, that's not where I was at the beginning of the program. I said, God has a great plan for my life, true statement, and I think it's this.
Yeah.
And if it had not been that, and I've had plenty of things in my life not work, and if it had not been that, I wasn't questioning what my identity would be on the other side of it. And so when you know God has a great plan, that's where it gives you a little bit of flexibility in your identity, that when you do make mistakes, you can say, it's okay. God, that doesn't change God's plan for my life. Maybe it's just that God's plan is a little bit different than what I thought it was, and that's totally okay because his plan's better than mine anyways.
Yeah. If you have a fear of facing reality and of facing what's really there because of what it would mean that you are, it means that your trust is in yourself. Yeah, that's what you're saying, is that ultimately you're trusting the way that you have such a rock solid identity, unlike anybody I've ever met in my life, is that you have this belief that God is always the one steering your story. And there's so much to be said about this, because the people of Israel, God said to them so many times when he was setting them up, he said, when have you ever heard of another nation that was chosen by their God and set apart to be a nation? The whole point to Israel's identity was they were the people of God. It was the root of what kept them. And if you look at that, you can say a lot of things about how unfaithful Israel was to God's covenant. You know what you can't say is that they ever gave up on who they were, because they went for how many hundreds of years without even having physical land until 1948, and they were still a people. I mean, the Romans had to put down so many uprisings during the Roman Empire. Pastor Josh was talking about this recently. It was such a common thing because they had this deep-rooted story and belief that they were the people of God. Guess what, guys? That's us today. We're the people of God, and God does have a plan for your life. That's what Garrett's saying. So the way to overcome the shortcomings of your identity and the fear of facing those things is to put your faith and your trust that God has a plan for your life. And you talk about belief and actual action. It's such a foreign thing in Hebrew culture and in the Old Testament to say like, oh, I believe, but I don't act. That didn't exist. Like your beliefs were shown by your actions. And once again, it's your man James. He says, you have faith and I have works. Show me your faith without your works, and I will show you my faith by my works. That's James 2, verse 18. And that's literally what he's saying. There's no such thing as I believe without action. Your action is your belief. It's just as simple as that. And that's what's going to keep you, is that you're going to have this dream, you're going to be seeing reality, but you're still going to say, hey, I believe. You're going to have to remind yourself.
Humility is the ability
Yeah.
to have this big dream, like, man, I want to be great. But all at the same time, look at yourself and look in the mirror and say, I'm so far from that.
Yeah.
And be okay with it and know that God can get you there.
Yeah.
That's what humility looks
Very
like.
good, G.
And when you can have humility, that's where you can say, like, man, I want to do something that's never been done. I want to do something that's so great. And you can look in the mirror and just see a little boy holding a sling and say, you know what? I guess God can do something with this.
Yeah.
That's what humility looks like. And so this level of embracing reality, just to oversimplify it, right? I've got the big dream. Step 2 is embrace reality. And what that allows you to do is see the landscape, see the battlefield clearly. I know from personal experience what it is like to be on the battlefield and understand it clearly, and what it is like to be on the battlefield and feel very foggy. When it's clear, at least you know how to play, right? I know, like, it sucks. We're surrounded, and there's way more of them than us, but at least we can see them and we know what to do, right? What would be worse? What would be worse is to be completely surrounded, way outnumbered, but you're in the fog thinking you've got it all figured out.
Yeah. Very good. You said when we were preparing for this that quite simply, so step 1 was vision or dream. Step 2 is embrace reality, which is just, what are the problems between me and my dream? And that's what you just said. It's seeing the battlefield. Well, step 3 is we get to live the dream, right, G? Just nailed it.
That's what this is all about, right? Is what we've talked about so far is to bring us to this place of overcoming reality.
There you go. Yeah.
You cannot overcome reality until you can see reality very clearly, right? Because once you can see it clearly, you'll also understand that there's layers. And there's some things that are like physiological challenges beyond science. We don't know how to fix this. But there are other things that it's like, well, reality has put these guard posts up, but we can take them down.
Right.
Like that. This is the way that people have always done things. There's always the levels of, why do you cut the ends off the ham? Well, because that's the way that it's always been done. And there's always going to be some opportunity to say, well, it's always been done that way, but we could do it differently.
Right.
And now there is new technology. Now there's also us. Now there's also a business case and a business reason to stop cutting the ends off the ham, and let's do something different. But until you can see the landscape clearly and totally understand the battlefield, you don't know why, or you don't have a good reason to do those things. When you understand reality very clearly, then you have a reason to do crazy things.
Right. And so that's part 3 of the dream loop, is overcoming reality. And this is not, rather than just getting to live the dream here and like retire on an island, this is when you actually solve the problems.
Yeah.
This is like, so you did all that just to get to the point where you can actually solve them.
There's a story that I love from Elon Musk and Tesla, and this was really like an overcome reality situation. This is not early Tesla. This is 2018 Tesla in their new Fremont factory. And this was on the Model 3 car, and they had pre-orders backing out. Like, investor confidence was wavering. Like, Tesla was going through a really tough time because they couldn't crank Model 3s out fast enough out of the Fremont factory that they put a lot of money into. Well, they didn't build that factory. It was a Toyota factory, but they invested a lot of money into it. And this was the Model 3, which was like supposed to be their cash machine.
Yeah.
And they could not make the cars fast enough. And long story short, what they did to produce cars fast enough, right, to deliver what was asked of them. It's not that they like created some like super robotic machine. And you know what they did have? Like they had the press to make the Tesla frames in like a one single print that had never been done before. Like, they did some really cool stuff, but also to get the Fremont factory moving at the pace that they wanted it to deliver to investors, they put up tents in the parking lot, and they ran man-served, like literally moved the bodies through the parking lot underneath the tent and assembled more cars faster.
Jeez.
Right. And so, like, when you think of Tesla, you think of robots assembling robots, and like, it's all cool. And it is. Like, I've seen the inside of Tesla factories, and it's slick.
Yeah.
But for them to deliver, they said, you know what, here's what it's going to take here's what reality looks like right now.
Right.
These robots aren't going to fix it. We're going to fix it.
Yeah.
Right. And we're going to put up tents in the parking lot and put more cars together, and we're going to deliver.
Yeah.
And so when they embraced reality, they could step back and say, okay, this sucks. We can do it. Here's what it's going to take.
Right. And once because I think you said when we were prepping, their goal was 5,000 cars off the line a week, right? Something like that.
Yeah.
That Elon said they had to hit that.
I think it was per month. I don't remember the
whatever it
unit
was.
numbers.
But they had to hit a certain unit number. And so what we're saying is that when they hit the unit number, it's not like everybody went, huzzah, okay, now everything's great. That was just a milestone. And so many people, I think what we want is a finish line, and what you get is a mile marker. It's like, hey, congratulations, you've made it this far. Keep going.
And when you get past the embrace reality portion and into the overcoming reality portion, what you're going to realize, this kind of connects back to what Nick was talking about at the beginning with Martin Luther's story, is that there's going to be steps along the way, right? Like, and really living your dream is like, hey man, we reached a milestone. We got closer. And at each one of these milestones, you're going to change, the problem changes. What messes, like, think about getting to the edge of the cliff as a milestone, and a lot of people want to rush the way there.
Right.
What you've got to understand is it's not how quickly can I get to the edge of the cliff. It's who do I need to be at the edge of the cliff.
Yeah, very good.
And understanding that's what milestones need to be, right? It's not time-based milestones. It's progress. It's growth-based milestones. And when we are this person, when the product that I've developed is at this level, then we will have moved forward.
Yeah.
And it's solving the right problems within each phase of whatever your dream is.
Yeah. And because Garrett touched on something about how you change, and I think that's the nature of this. We like to say at the top of the mountains, G, what is there?
More mountains.
More mountains. And what does that mean? It's this picture of life where it's like, man, I have this dream. I really want to make X amount of money. And so you set out. Let's say it's like, you want to make $200,000. Okay. So you go make $200,000. Well, here's the thing. By the time you make $200,000, you've paid a price and you've gone through a process where by the time you get there, you're different. Maybe you get there and $200,000 isn't what it was whenever you start out to you. Now you're like, well, actually $200,000 is nice, but really what I want to make is $500,000. What is that? That's the next mountain. And I'm using money, but this is true of anything. Man, I really want my marriage to be a certain way. And then you get there and now you've changed, and so is your wife, and so is your relationship. And you're like, well, what else is possible? You don't just get into this place of homeostasis where you just like, now we just take our foot off the gas and coast for the rest of your life. And so you have to realize that this is like a loop. So you're going to get to this top of this mountain. That's why we call it the dream loop. And guess what? You go right back to vision and dream, right? Because now you can see something more clear. Oh, I didn't know what else was out there when I was at the base of the mountain, but getting to this mountain has caused me to see a lot more, but I still can't see the very top. Okay, you're going to go again. And this is the cycle, and you have to understand that it's not a finish line. That's why we said it's a mile marker. But you do get becoming moments. You get I feel like God. Some people call them God winks, but you get these.
You
moments.
get a glimpse.
Yeah, you get these glimpses. I think in your story, G, I think about you and the rocks on the Saturday after Hell Week when you said you'd go for a run. That was like a becoming moment. I've been there for some of your becoming moments, whether it's you gave a big speech or whatever may happen, and you get the feedback. You gave a speech.
Well, it's the altar moments.
Yeah.
Just like God had with many people in the Old Testament.
Very good.
Where God reveals himself and people said, God was with, that's Jacob, right? God was with me here.
Yeah, it's so good, man. And what you said, G, is you don't live the dream, but you overcome reality long enough, and then.
And that's, you're not going to just like walk into the dream. But when you understand this process of like, okay, I've got a big dream and I'm going to embrace reality and actually like understand how big the mountain actually is. You want to climb Mount Everest, you don't wish your way to the top. And now the Everest has changed in the way that program works. But if we go back to the pureness of Everest, people looked at it and there's a dozen different problems on Everest that they're like, how do we do this? And you don't just will your way to the top of Everest. They really had to attack each of these individual problems. Okay, here's what it's going to take to cross this glacier. Here's what it's going to take to move up this face in these types of winds and these types of conditions with the amount of gear that while we're carrying oxygen, all these things. There's a bunch of really complex problems. And you're not just going to walk into the dream. But if you'll get the understanding, I'm going to take my dream, I'm going to embrace reality hard, and I'm going to keep looking at each different challenge and say, what's the way? Just like we talk about on this podcast, doing the answer to the impossible is, if I had to, what would it take?
Yeah.
And looking at these things that seem impossible and saying, I'm going to keep looking at it. I'm going to keep working on it until I can figure out how to solve it. And if you keep doing that long enough, if you keep overcoming reality, eventually you will walk into the dream.